Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another SoCal first time buyer market update. It's December 9th. Today we're going to talk about kind of some crazy stuff. I think there's a lot of things floating around out there on the internet. I know I've gotten a lot of questions from people, and I want to have a little bit of a broader conversation. So let's go ahead, let's get started and jump into it. Now, some of you might have been reading, and I've noticed this seems to happen periodically, right? We'll get kind of a bunch of things about press. Somebody will say something pretty extraordinary. I think one of the articles I saw recently said they are predicting a 50% market correction in real estate. And the first comment I want to make to this is real estate is inherently a local game, right? And it's real estate has always been about two things determine real estate values. One are market fundamentals, right? And this is probably the biggest thing, right? How many people do you have that want real estate in a given area and what real estate is available in a given area? It's not terribly difficult conceptually. And the second thing that's really important is sort of market sentiment. And the reason why is because market sentiment can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If 50% of people in a given market think that prices are going to crash, and even if of those 50%, 10% put their home on the market, that will induce basically a market sell-off, right? Like it is possible to have that. One of the things I want to talk about, because a couple of people have asked me, is what do I think about some of these articles and some of these sort of bold predictions? And the reality is, I'm not in a position to comment on other parts of the country, or at least not comment that extensively. I don't follow statistics in those markets. I have colleagues and associates. I have friends who work in some of these other markets. But the reality is, I'm not in these other markets. So while personally, do I think there are some, let's put it this way, some market challenges in some of these markets where I think you've got supply really edging upward and you don't have a corresponding increase in demand? Maybe markets like Florida, markets in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I don't follow those, right? These videos, what I talk about are about Los Angeles, Orange counties, and maybe even you can extrapolate a little bit to San Diego and Riverside counties because we're in a similar market space. So I don't really spend a lot of time talking about markets outside of that because frankly, I don't know them. And what might be going on, the market dynamics, for example, in Dallas, Fort Worth are very, very different than the market dynamics here in Southern California. And if we're talking about sort of disaster scenarios, right? The number one thing that you need if you want to look for a major real estate market correction is inventory, right? You need to have, and not just number of homes on the market, you need to have a market full of motivated sellers. Now, in some of these other markets around the country, they have things like new home builders. New home builders are incredibly motivated sellers. Once that house is complete, it is costing that builder tons of dollars every month that that house sits. So you have to understand really the market dynamics of where you are. Here in Southern California specifically, we don't have a lot of what I would call high motivation inventory. We have sellers who are more likely, if they don't think they're going to get the price they want or need, they are just going to pull that house from the market. They're not going to keep dropping the price until it sells, unlike a home builder who will keep adding in incentives and doing other things until that home sells. So I don't see a lot of ingredients in Southern California that would lead me to believe we are set up for a crash. And the reality is, for the last couple of years, our market has been going up at more or less inflationary rates. That's really given us a little bit of a chance for things to catch up. So while I think it's important to constantly be paying attention to sort of the macros, and I am watching unemployment, right? Unemployment can create motivated sellers, especially here where we have a lot of sellers who have a lot of equity, right, that they might not want to lose. But until I start seeing those unemployment rates actually really jumping, I think it's just speculation at this point. So let's go ahead and let's actually look at those numbers and get into it, because I think at the end of the day, that's really where you need to pay attention. Is you've got to be watching the actual data and not the speculation. So if we take a look here at closed prices, what do we see? To be honest, we see a lot of stagnation, right? I mean, we can follow these ups and downs a little bit, but the reality is for the last year or so, we've really been treading water on prices. We haven't really seen a huge increase. And by the way, in an inflationary environment, a flat year on home prices, that really is a discount, right, going forward. That is a little bit of relief to the first-time home buyers out there. If inflation was 3% and you're looking at $1 million homes, you've just saved $30,000 if that home has not gone up. Now, if we look at our total monthly payment, again, this is based on 5% down, including mortgage insurance, taxes, etc. We're at $6,100 for that entry-level 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and we're at $4,200 for that 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. To be honest, these numbers are not terribly disparate from renting. Are they higher? Yes. Are they that much higher when you take into account tax savings and the principal you're paying on a typical loan? No, honestly, they aren't that much higher. I think we're actually in a pretty decent position for first-time home buyers. If you take a look at minimum household income required, again, this kind of gives it some real numbers and some real reference. You would need just shy of $150,000. This is an improvement over last year, by the way, to get into that entry-level single-family home, and just over $100,000 to get into that entry-level condo. And this is household income. If we look at our absorption rate, that's really shot up for condos, which I find kind of interesting here to see that number. But these are at pretty healthy levels looking at this time of year. We do normally see these numbers pop towards the end of the year, but we've actually seen a little bit of a rise as we head towards the end of the year. And to me, that really indicates a market that might be strengthening a little bit, or at least holding its own. If we look at our total inventory, we can see that our entry-level single-family home inventory is, to be honest, pretty close to where it was at this point last year, trending downward. And our entry-level condo inventory is, albeit probably about 30% higher than it was last year. I think condos have taken a real beating in the public, in the press, HOAs, financial insolvency issues, insurance, special assessments. But like I said, if you're a smart first-time home buyer and you know how to read those HOA documents, or better yet, you are working with an agent who can help you go through those documents, it's really kind of a unique opportunity for you. If we look at our still active after 14 days, that does show a little bit more weakness in our market heading in, but I'm not entirely sure that's unusual for this time of year. We're starting to get to that time of year where, because of the holidays, we have kind of some unusual anomalies that start to show up in the data. And finally, if we look at weak supply of homes, this one is probably the one piece of data that does give me a little bit of a pause here. What does this mean? It means that demand itself is slowing, right? Because inventory is in flat numbers is going down, but the weeks of inventory is going up. What does that mean? It does mean demand is slackening. Again, though, we are in December, and I'm not really sure how upset we should be about those numbers and how telling those numbers are to see them climb like this. In fact, you'll notice if you take a look here, last year, that first week in January, we had 12 weeks of inventory, and again, over 21 weeks of inventory in our condos. This isn't terribly alarming numbers for me. So, what's my advice to you if you're out there and you're trying to figure out, you're reading news here, but you're also saying, well, what if we guess wrong? What if homes go up 5% next spring? And I've essentially lost a bunch of money by waiting. Well, I would tell you to really, look at your personal situation. I think that's a much bigger driver of what you need to do. And the second thing is, if you're going to look at real estate data and opinions that are out there, the more local the information that you can receive, the better. I really don't care what the national market does in real estate. It doesn't matter for most of my clients. Where most of my clients care is, what is the market in Orange County? What is the market in LA County? What is the market in the San Fernando Valley? What is the market in Mission Viejo, in South County? That's really where the market information matters. So if you're going to consume kind of some of this information is thrown out there, you really want to consume the most local information that you can find. Anyhow, that's all I've got for everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And as always, if you are considering becoming a homeowner, or you know someone who should be, definitely reach out to us. We definitely love to lend you our expertise. We'll see you again real soon.